Ladies and gents, my name is Brandon Stover. I'm the founder of Plato University, and today we're going to cover the 3 phases of learning, a modern education based on ancient Greek secrets. So the core pedagogy, or fancy word for how we teach, at Plato University is based on mastery-based learning. I'll cover that more in depth in a video later on, but I want to help you understand these 3 phases embedded in our pedagogy so that you can use them in your courses and teaching too. So the 3 phases are explore, engage, and execute. Explore means exploring topics and foundational concepts, providing a breadth of knowledge, a more shotgun approach. When you move into the engage phase, you're undergoing experiences that allow for a depth of knowledge, a more focused and sniper approach, where students are thinking critically about each foundational concept and how they relate to one another, working with each one in exercises and activities. And finally, you move to execute, where you're applying the skills in real situations, demonstrating that you have mastery over the foundational concepts. Now, these phases actually map onto an ancient way of learning that gave us a model for how we can go about learning anything. In classical education, which was first used by the ancient Greeks, people learned concepts by going through grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which was outlined in Plato's dialogues. This later became known as the trivium used in the Middle Ages. Breaking the trivium down, we have grammar, which are the words, definitions, building blocks, foundational concepts, the nuts and bolts, the rules, and mechanics that create a body of knowledge. Then you move to logic, which is the practice of thought and analysis, understanding the systematic relationship between each one of those foundational concepts. And finally, once you've gained the knowledge and you have an understanding, you move to rhetoric, which is the art of applying this knowledge of foundational concepts and understanding of their relationships in a way that creates desired effects in the world in a variety of contexts, demonstrating mastery of the material and wisdom of when to use it. Now, you may be asking, why are we going to use a teaching method from over 2,000 years ago? You mean besides the fact that it's the basis of Western civilization? Or the fact that this is how our brain creates neural connections between concepts? Because this method not only teaches you what to learn, but how to learn it, and most importantly, why to learn it. Education should not just teach people what to know. They should teach them how to learn and ask relevant questions about the world around them. And then taking that one step further, where most education falls short, of actually applying what you've learned to your problems, to your family's problems, your work's problems, your community's problems, your country's problems, and maybe even the world's problems. Theory into action. What is the concept? Why is it important and relate to me and the world? And how do I apply it? Well, that's a great question. I'm going to show you how to apply these phases in the things that you teach. I'll cover this at a high level quickly, and then we'll dive into each phase. When you're creating a learning plan or an outline for a course, organize your material into the 3 phases of learning. Start with explore. What are the foundational concepts, the building blocks that my students must know in order to apply this knowledge later? Next, have them move into engage. What are the exercises and activities that I can have my students do in order to understand the relationships between these foundational concepts and begin practicing application of them? And finally, execute. How could my students demonstrate mastery of this material, applying it in new contexts? And by the way, a test is not a new context. Explore, engage, execute. Your students' learning journey begins in the explore phase, where they're learning foundational concepts about whatever topic they're studying. Foundational knowledge is the knowledge that all other knowledge stems from. The basic building blocks, or the key principles of a skill that will be used over and over and over again. The main goal of the explore phase is just to have them get their feet wet, developing a hands-on feel for a skill or concept. If you remember back to the trivium, this was known as grammar, which is going to give them an understanding of the who, what, where, and when of any subject. Presenting foundational material first presents a backbone that you can connect other information to, allowing an organized mental structure to build up in their minds over time. Research shows that learning is enhanced when you present foundational material first, taking advantage of existing associations as you start presenting new material. The second reason is that you're teaching knowledge that's not going to change over time. We live in a world where things are rapidly moving forward. But if you can teach things from first principles, those principles stay stable even as the world changes. And the last reason, by having them explore topics at the base knowledge, they get to dabble a little bit and start to understand the world, how they fit in it, and how they may be able to contribute to it. So let's talk about how you design exploration into your courses. When you're designing your course, start asking yourself these questions. in your topic, what concepts are at the base of all other concepts? Focus on these first. Next, try and build on prior associations that your students may have. When learning something new, the more associations that you can connect that topic with, the more likely they are to remember it. And finally, I've already taught you about interviewing your students when you're creating a course to find out what they want. Go back to those interviews. What did they care about? How do they want to apply this information to their life? And what foundational knowledge are they going to need to know in order to make that application? Additionally, how might you teach them in a way that gives them a taste of what it'll be like to apply this skill in the future, just to make sure that they actually enjoy doing that and want to continue down the path of learning this skill? All of the answers to these questions become the basis of your course, and that will cover phase 1, exploration. We're going to cover phase 2, which is engage. This is where your students are actively recalling information. They're practicing skills and they're engaging in experiences that form relationships between the foundational concepts they learned in exploration. The goal here is for them to understand it one level deeper. The focus switches from them getting a feel for the topic to studying how things work and start to build up a mental model in their mind of these core concepts so that they can apply them later. They understand not only how to use the skill, but why and how that skill is constructed in that way. In the classical trivium, this is known as logic, which answers the why of a subject and establishes valid relationships between concepts, rendering a systematic understanding of the topic. Now, why are we going to have students engage with the material? We're helping students to go through the process of moving information from short-term memory to long-term memory so that they can retrieve and apply it later. By engaging with the material, students are starting to link separate concepts together in information chunks, which are easier to retrieve from your memory. And being able to remember large swaths of information really helps with complex problem solving and deeper understanding of much larger and complex topics. Additionally, they can think much faster because having these links readily available in long-term memory, their working memory is freed up and enabled to do higher level thinking. And lastly, because student motivation is so important, the more you have students engage with a topic, they begin turning their curiosities into a passion. And anybody with a passion knows that you'll spend hours learning something without having to have external motivation to do it. You just intrinsically want to sit there and learn all that you can about that topic. So how do you go about designing engagement in your course? First, present the foundational topics with the use of active learning techniques. Throughout this lesson, I've helped you use active recall, reminding you of the connection between the 3 phases of learning and the trivium, which is a foundational concept to this lesson. Next, have them practice the skills that they're learning through exercises, activities, and projects, strengthening neural connections between that previously learned information, moving it from short-term memory to long-term memory. In the courses that we design, every one of our lessons has an activity to apply what they just learned. And that activity is associated with just one step of a process in order to complete a final project, which demonstrates mastery of them actually learning the material. And finally, have them practice foundational material first and creating associations with that material as you present new information. This is going to create a larger mental map and neural connections between each material in their mind. In our courses, we put knowledge into a logical sequence of steps, having students master each step before moving on to the next. Every lesson that follows builds on the previous lesson before. So that's phase 2, engage. We're on to our final phase, which is execute. This is where the emphasis is put on mastery, applying skills to higher level concepts, new contexts, and producing new and original works. In the classical trivium, this was known as rhetoric, which told how knowledge and understanding are applied in the real world. Now, why are we going to have students demonstrate execution of a skill? When students were engaging in deliberate practice in the last phase, they were converting declarative knowledge, which is facts and concepts, into procedural knowledge, steps that can be repeated over and over and over again in application. The process of becoming an expert of any domain, or what might be referred to as a master, requires converting a lot of declarative knowledge into automatic, unconscious, procedural knowledge. But a true master is not only able to apply the knowledge they know in the context which they learned it, but to entirely new situations, which is known as transfer. So by having a student demonstrate that they can apply this knowledge in new situations, we can be pretty confident that they learned the information and will be able to apply it in their life, their work, society, and so on. So now let's look at how we're going to put execution into our courses. In your courses, you should have students applying the skill until they're easily able to retrieve it and apply it to solving problems in their life or going after their goals. This could look like a final project that's associated with something that they care about. For example, in our podcasting course, we had them launch a podcast. When I went to design and architecture school, we did a final capstone project where we designed a building and pitched it to 200 industry professionals, something you would do in the real world. If it's a business class, well, then you should probably have them actually launch a business. And what about a more esoteric subject like philosophy? Well, have them think through what it would be like to apply some of the philosophies they're learning to real problems they're having in their life right now. Maybe the whole point of philosophy. And those would be examples of doing phase 3, execution. I'm going to reveal how you can take all 3 of these phases and put them together in one course. So far, we've covered what each phase is, explore, engage, execute, why they each matter, and how you might begin to apply these. Let's pull it all together now and see how you might design a course with all 3 phases in mind. I think the best way to do this is to walk through an example. So let's say we were going to build a course for teaching students Web3. To help them explore, I'm going to teach them the foundational concepts. This might be things like what is Web3, what are NFTs or non-fungible tokens, teaching them about cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance, showing them what DAOs are, decentralized autonomous organizations, helping them gain the concepts around the blockchain and building decentralized applications on top of it, and what the metaverse is. Next, to help them engage with this material, I'm going to create lessons with activities to engage with these concepts. This would look something like how to create and sell NFTs, how to invest in cryptocurrency and get started with decentralized finance, how to join or create a DAO, how to become a Web3 developer and build on the blockchain, or how to build in the metaverse. You can see we're taking those foundational concepts that we learned and putting them into some use in some sort of application where we have to engage with the material. During this practice, they're learning specific relationships between these concepts, such as how to use specific blockchain protocols in order to create smart contracts to elicit an outcome from a group of users. Finally, to execute on the material and demonstrate mastery, I'd have them do a final project applying the material to a real-life problem that they care about. For example, maybe they care about US governance. They could use the blockchain to develop a token which persuades people to organize together into a DAO in order to take a collective action like purchasing the Constitution of the United States of America. By the way, this was a real thing. Go and Google the Constitution DAO. You can see we've moved our students from the definitions of these different parts of Web3 and taken them to a place where they could actually apply those concepts towards something that they care about, moving them from explore to engage to execute. Now, figuring all this out, how you can lay out a course and structure things so that students actually learn and apply the information can be quite confusing. But if you remember the 3 phases, explore, engage, execute, you can rest assured that they're going to get the information and your course is going to make an impact. Now, if you want help creating a course this way, use the link in the description to schedule a free call with me, and we'll turn your wisdom into actionable education. Let's build something great together.